Hey guys, how's it going? This video is about my third year second project, the biggest project I did in undergrad. I'm just going to be presenting it as if I'm presenting this to judges or markers. So I'm pretty much reading off a script. Most of the time you just see one or two images from people's projects or through like Instagram, their website. Sometimes you get portfolios that's put on YouTube, but they're never the full portfolio. Even when you see a full portfolio on Issue, it's a bit too boring to go through it yourself. They're usually pretty long if it's for a full project. So yeah, I just thought this would be an easier way for people that want to see an example of an architecture project to just watch and sit back and listen to the bullshit that I'm gonna spill into your ears. Okay, I don't have any script for this first page. I'm just gonna say some random shit. Hello everyone, my name is
Pablo Emilio Escobar Gaviria.
Welcome to my final year presentation. This project is titled 2024 A NeMo Odyssey. This project responds to the impact of the modern space race by proposing an architecture that retrieves and recycles the excessive debris we have put out into the Earth's orbit. Project 1 of this year takes inspiration from the movie 2001 A Space Odyssey by Stanley Kubrick and George Orwell's 1984. Informed by their dystopic narrative and sci-fi nature, Project 1 explores the infrastructure needed to accommodate crashed satellites. Just a few weeks ago, China's Tianhe shuttle fell from space and produced a large amount of debris that crashed into inhabited areas. This is from like 2 years ago. As of right now, there are 129 million pieces of debris in the lower Earth orbit, traveling at tens of kilometers per second. Even a small fragment could destroy a satellite. The Kessler syndrome is a phenomenon in which the amount of junk in orbit around Earth reaches a point where it just creates more and more space debris, causing big problems for satellites, astronauts, and mission planners. Following on from Project 1, NeMo Odyssey takes inspiration from Kubrick's sequel, 2010, The Year We Made Contact, which tells the return to Earth story of a long-lost space shuttle. Similar to Kubrick's spaceship, the removed debris satellite launched in 2018 by NASA and SpaceX is designed to return satellites and space objects back to Earth. These satellites are equipped with nets and sails that allow them to capture and drag satellites out of their orbits. The removal procedure is carried out in 3 steps: net release, debris capture, and remove/deorbit. While in space, these satellites are hundreds of kilometers above us. However, the removed debris satellites, as well as the ISS, will eventually reach the end of their lifespan at a place even more remote to civilization than space. Over the last century, more than 300 satellites, including space stations, have landed in the region of Point Nemo, the so-called oceanic pole of inaccessibility located in the South Pacific Ocean, 3,000 kilometers away from the nearest land. In March of 2001, the Soviet Union directed their 30-meter-long space station, Mir, to fall into the region of Point Nemo. The re-entry pod was the only component reclaimed, meaning that the rest of the $4 billion space station remains in the depths of the ocean, along with other sunken satellites marked by the white crosses. The NeMo Space Archive looks to monopolize the opportunity that exists at Point Nemo. Based on the same region of the Pacific, Jules Verne's 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea follows the voyage of Captain Nemo, who is named after the location itself. After the death of Jules Verne, Captain Nemo's captain log was discovered. Documented in the log are information on his oceanic encounters, both above and below water, leading to the interest in the sunken Mir and incoming International Space Station. The initial program diagram illustrates the current and depths of the South Pacific region, which allows for the retrieve and facilitation of Mir. On page 16 of the captain's log, he documents the sighting of a fishing village on the shore of New Zealand. The annotated drawings on the following page depicted a reversed fishing net which captures objects falling from the sky. Similar to the throttling process used in commercial fishing and oil spill cleanups, the net-like architecture looks to capture everything that contacts its surface. On the next page of the log, Nemo includes photographs of a lighthouse on the shore of Chile. Based on his notes, the sketch on the right is set to be an illustration of a light constellation which would inhabit the unnavigable region of the Pacific. Due to the limited resources found in the central region of the ocean, the initial concept of the constellation Lightpost is pieced together using remnants of past satellites retrieved from the seabed. Inspired by Christo and Genie's floating installations, the constellation looks to provide an inhabitable surface on top of the water. Initial sketch explored the different formation that can be used for the constellation. The material of the constellation fabric is informed by modern graphene technology, which allows the production of graphene sheets that are 300 times stronger than steel. The first master plan of NeMo Space Archive presents the development of the Mir outpost, as well as the initial construction phase of the sheet constellation. The zoom-in of the plan highlights possible anchor placements, as well as wave barriers and underwater cables that transport small debris. In relation to the plan, the The sectional sketch echoes the different types of anchors which will stabilize the building. The three main spaces of the Space Archive include Mir and ISS Outpost, as well as a designated impact net that will be located in the center of the constellation. Most reentries can be classified into three categories. Predetermined satellite reentries are considered controlled, detected reentries are semi-controlled, and lastly, uncontrolled reentries include any undetectable objects, most likely fragments that are too small to be tracked. The priority of the Space Archive is to capture as many controlled reentries as possible, shown in red, since the speed, trajectory, and impact locations can all be predetermined, unlike uncontrolled reentries, shown in blue. The reentry of ISS has been set in the year 2024. The ISS will take over Mir as the largest object captured by the NeMo Space Archive. Based on previous reentries, such as the Columbia and Challenger shuttle, the mass and velocity of the shuttles upon landing is much different to that of their original. Three equations are used to calculate the mass and velocity of the ISS upon impact. With an initial mass of 229 tons, the ISS will land with a final mass of 98 tons and a velocity of 8 kilometers per second. Fast as f***. In order to sustain this impact, the archive needs to be bulletproofed itself. Informed by the traditional Kevlar vest, the building looks to use graphene to absorb the satellite's entire kinetic energy without causing any form of ricochet. Three types of materials are tested to find the right combination of strength, buoyancy, and flexibility. The materials are subjected to a buoyancy test, as well as an impact test, which measures the amount of force they can sustain while staying afloat, as seen documented in the sequences above. In conclusion to the physical testing, the fabric that is to be fitted onto NeMo's constellation will consist a total of 5 layers, including 2 layers of graphene, each reinforced with a layer of Kevlar and a layer of polypropylene fabric, which supplies buoyancy to the bulletproof layers above it. The assembly of these sheets will create the perfect capture site for space objects, as the only thing that reaches Point Nemo are bacteria, satellites, and meteorites. Tell me that's not a cool fact. The first render explores the flotational pathways connecting the sheets, as well as the possibility of lifting the sheets to create spaces underneath its membranes. The section focuses more on the dust collection devices and the constellation lights. However, in order to capture large-sized satellites such as Mir and ISS, more work is required to slow it down before impact. Used by re-entry capsules, there are 4 steps to a soft landing. These steps allow the satellite to travel a longer distance in order to slow down its velocity. The removed debris satellites carry out step 1 to 3 prior to re-entering the Earth's atmosphere. As the final stage of the soft landing, step 4 includes the deployment of parachutes as well as a series of on-water preparations. The goal is to best preserve the mass and shape of the satellites. As seen previously, bulletproof vests can deform bullets, which indicates that the graphene sheets should not be the first to contact the satellites, as we want to preserve the satellites in its best condition. From the Mythbusters, we can also learn that water can be as hard and as damaging as concrete when hit with a high velocity. This velocity is high as f***. Therefore, the sheets must be pulled down just before landing, as the pulling of the sheet will aerate the water with a temporary pocket of air bubbles for the debris to land on, with little to no water surface tension. In the case that the debris does contact the sheet even after slowing down from the water, the sea anchors will prevent the constellation from capsizing. The photographed constellation sentinel can be seen carrying multiple sea anchors, as well as its central ballast tank that allows it to pull the net/fabric below the surface of the water. The 3 impact sequences summarize the forces and elements in play, including the satellite, the sea anchors, and how the water can be used to trap the fragments from potential ricochet. Post-impact, the collection of the debris is managed by cargo helicopters and crawler vehicles aboard the archive. The containment of the debris will take place in between the sheets. Through elevating the top layer of the graphene, the space beneath it becomes bullet/space debris proof. Informed by Japanese floating energy farms, the pathways and platforms which support inhabitation is then articulated between the sheets using pontoons and columns. Thanks to the customizable nature of pontoons, the constellation will be able to grow while adapting to the necessities of different captures. The first interior shot of the NeMo Space Archive surfaced in 2005 when a photographer took a 3-week-long boat ride to Point Nemo. The fragment in the photo is said to belong to the Mir space station, though no one can really confirm. Underneath the bulletproof skin, the inhabitable pontoon structures are safe from direct hits, but are still subjugated to harsh conditions given the current and ripples that can be generated by nearby captures. In order to keep things in place, a number of circular trusses informed by the sonic center will surround the fragment to provide stability. A large number of tensioning cables will then hold the truss rings in place, as well as to carry any underwater components of the building. As studied in the tech report, the facilitation of the satellites will take place above hydrothermal vents. With the help of the offshore thermal energy conversion systems, the building will be able to extract energy from the ocean. The diagram demonstrates the placement of OTECs in relation to the vents. The OTECs generate energy through the difference in water temperature between the ocean surface and the thermal vents located on the ocean bed. In correspondence to the section, the plan highlights the key spaces of the mirror outpost, which is set to be completed in the year 2024. The key spaces include the main debris facility at the center of the ring, the energy facilities to its left, as well as other smaller fragments around, and their designated loading decks. The zoom in of outposts shows more of the spaces surrounding the fragments, such as living modules, labs, and emergency escape zones. On February 2nd of the year 2024, during the 34th solar cycle at approximately 5:23 p.m. Universal Time, the mission to capture the International Space Station is commenced with a deployment of 6 removed debris satellites. At an altitude of 368 kilometers with an orbital speed of 4.7 kilometers per second, the ISS was officially secured after 3 hours of micro-adjustments. In accordance to the stages of soft landing as previously mentioned, the removed debris satellites deploy their solar sails approximately 45 minutes after deorbiting. The solar wind of this particular solar cycle has been calculated to be able to sail the ISS in the direction of the NeMo constellation. The constellation, which by the year 2024 will have grown to the surface area of 1 million kilometers squared. The reason for its size is simple. An average of 500 meteorites reach the surface of the Earth each year, but less than 10 are recovered. This is because most fall into the ocean, and statistically, having a 1 million kilometers squared surface area will guarantee the capture of at least 1 meteorite annually, given the total surface area of the Earth. Meteorites can cost much more than satellites due to their rarity, but as of right now, the mirror outpost highlighted in red contains the most valuable asset to the NeMo Space Archive. As seen in an aerial shot provided by NASA, mirror outpost is located to the south of the main debris capture net and west to the secondary debris capture net. These large circular standalone graphene vests are designated impact points for controlled reentries. The debris capture nets are padded with extra layers, making controlled reentries even safer for surrounding structures. Just after midnight, the ISS struck at an angle of 34 degrees with a velocity of 1.2 kilometers squared, well within the protective range of the net. Sheet A82, which houses the mirror outpost, informs the future infrastructures that will accommodate the remains of the ISS. The aerial photograph released in January 2024 presents the mirror outpost in its close to final form. Zooming into sheet A82, which has the dimensions of 1 kilometer by 1 kilometer. Its key components include the rings of pontoon paths surrounding the center, as well as hangars which house transportation units. As seen in the photo, each fragment facility is joined by a designated loading dock. The clarity of the outpost structure is due to the absence of its top layer of graphene, as once every year, the sheets are temporarily removed and cleaned. Based on the blueprints and aerial photos shown previously, researchers have pieced together some more detailed zoom-ins of mirror outpost. The first digitally generated plan provides a close-up view of the central fragment and facilities surrounding it, including energy storage tanks, crawler hangars, and tents/living modules. Following the first, the second digitally generated plan looks to the west of the fragments and show the energy facilities as well as the helicopter hangars. The publicly released sections of the mirror outpost provides further insights into the archive, with labels showing the relative depths of the ocean. Zooming into the long section, there are 3 vital spaces as highlighted in red. The first detail provides information on the connection between the sheets, as an underwater pulley system can be seen that likely holds the sheets together while allowing the passage of boats. The columns, as seen in the section, are able to adjust their heights using hydraulics. Changing of their heights allow them to control the tensioning of the fabrics, which can help prevent tears and rips. The columns are pinned onto the pontoons, and there are 2 main layers of pontoon foundations, one above and one below water, with a gap of roughly 1 meter in between. At the top of the columns, hydraulic clamps lock the sheets in place, with the maintenance lifts installed to its rear and impact absorption joints fitted. Above the fabric are satellite dishes and signal posts, 1 dish for communication and 1 for detecting meteorites. The second sectional detail focuses on the energy facility, which includes the OTEC system and energy storage tanks, highlighted in red. The storage tanks, as seen in white, allows for energy to be safely stored around the entire outpost for emergency use. The third and last sectional blueprint focuses on the main fragment of Mir that is located in the center of the sheet/outpost. Based on the last section, a colorized version has been digitally generated based on the set materiality. As to the only perspective shot ever captured of the building's exterior, the photograph taken on a helicopter was said to have been during the capture of the ISS, as no other debris would possibly carry a light trail as bright as this. The first of its 3 interior shots capture 3 of Mir's fragments lit up by the night sky of the South Pacific Ocean. Making up a large portion of the photograph is the mythical reinforced graphene membrane that shields the satellites from debris. The second of its interiors is taken atop one of the columns, with the main focus being on the fragment in the center. This is the second largest fragment of Mir, which was still presumably under study in the year 2024, as inferred by the tents and researchers on site. Directly behind the fragment is the center of the Mir outpost, which contains the main fragment, as seen just below the horizon. Judging by the photo, the main fragment of Mir looks to be roughly 30 meters in length and 15 meters in width. The facilitation of this fragment is set to be carried out by the station crew that conduct hourly check-ins of its temperature, humidity, and other physical conditions. Although there have been no public claims of ownership to this fragment, its current estimated 9-digit price tag should make it well worth the effort for the NeMo Space Archive.